There was something strange about the new neighbor, Mr. Anderson. He moved in next door a few months ago, and his silent, enigmatic presence has left everyone in the neighborhood intrigued. The house, an old stone building, looked as old as it was sinister. Rumors about Mr. Anderson spread quickly. It was said that he rarely went out during the day, and at night he could be seen surveying his estate, lit only by the dim light of candles. He avoided contact with his neighbors, and what little conversation he had with anyone was always accompanied by an aura of mystery. Emma and Daniel, a young couple who lived next door to Mr. Anderson, were particularly intrigued by him. They felt that there was something dark and mysterious about his presence, something that made them uncomfortable whenever they met his gaze. The nights they spent awake, listening to muffled footsteps and murmurs coming from the house next door, only increased their curiosity. One night, unable to resist the temptation to unravel the mystery, Emma and Daniel decided to investigate. As the moon dimly illuminated the neighborhood, they approached Mr. Anderson's house, hidden in the shadows. The house seemed empty, but the basement window was ajar. Cautiously, they approached and peered out. They were petrified to see Mr. Anderson in a dark room, surrounded by lit candles and strange writings on the walls. He muttered words in an unknown language, and his expression was a mixture of obsession and fear. A chill ran down Emma and Daniel's spine. They quickly turned away from the window and returned home, determined to find out what was happening to their mysterious neighbor. In the days that followed, Emma and Daniel watched Mr. Anderson even more carefully. They began to notice disturbing patterns in their nighttime behavior. Every night, he performed strange rituals in the basement, and the sound of murmurs and rituals echoed through the walls of the house. The couple tried to talk to other neighbors, but everyone was reluctant to get involved. Some claimed to have experienced nightmares after talking to Mr. Anderson, while others avoided discussing the subject altogether. Emma decided to research the history of the house. He discovered that, years ago, a macabre ritual had been carried out in the basement, resulting in unexplained tragedies and disappearances. The local community came to believe that the house was cursed and avoided it at all costs. Emma didn't know if she could believe such stories, but everything she and Daniel had witnessed so far left her scared. Determined to uncover the truth, the couple prepared for a nighttime investigation. While Mr. Anderson began another of his dark rituals, Emma and Daniel approached the basement and, this time, dared to enter. What they found left them breathless. The basement was filled with ancient artifacts, books of dark magic, and strange objects that exuded a sinister energy. The room was filled with detailed drawings of shadowy entities, and, in the center, an altar covered in candles. Emma and Daniel exchanged glances, unable to believe their eyes. The atmosphere in that place was oppressive, as if they were in a nightmare realm. They began taking photos and taking notes on everything they found, determined to discover what Mr. Anderson was trying to achieve with these dark rituals. As they explored the basement, they heard a noise coming from the stairs. Mr. Anderson was descending, his gaze fixed in fury. He had discovered them. "What are you doing here?" he growled, his words sounding like whispers from an evil presence. Emma and Daniel, feeling the weight of guilt and fear, tried to explain their concerns. They mentioned the rituals, the murmurs, and the gloomy air that hung over the house. Mr. Anderson's face changed from anger to sadness. He began to talk about a curse that had plagued him for years, something he had been trying to break through desperate rituals. He admitted that his quest for power had led him into darkness, and that he had lost control over the forces he had summoned. The couple felt sorry for Mr. Anderson, but also feared what he had unleashed. He begged them to help him find a way to break the curse, claiming he couldn't do it alone. "You have to understand that this darkness is real," he said. "It won't go away on its own, and I can't contain what has been released." Emma and Daniel, now torn between compassion and fear, agreed to help Mr. Anderson find a solution to what had triggered his quest for power. They knew they were about to enter dark and dangerous territory, but the alternative was to allow the curse to continue to spread. Thus, they began the search for answers that would lead them to face a darkness that was far beyond their understanding. In the days that followed, Emma and Daniel delved deeply into researching the curse that afflicted Mr. Anderson. They spent hours sifting through the vast collection of ancient books and artifacts that filled the dingy basement. Each discovery led them deeper into the world of the occult and black magic. As their investigations progressed, they also began to realize that the curse tormenting Mr. Anderson was related to an ancient demonic entity. Records revealed that, centuries ago, a secret cult performed dark rituals in the same region, summoning a shadow being. Increasingly worried about the situation, Emma and Daniel decided to seek help from an occult expert. They located Dr. Samuel Blackwood, a renowned scholar of the supernatural, and arranged a meeting in secret. Dr. Blackwood arrived at Emma and Daniel's house in the dead of night, bringing with him a suitcase full of amulets and magical tools. He listened carefully to the couple's account and analyzed the evidence they had collected. "What Mr. Anderson has unleashed is very dangerous," explained Dr. Blackwood. "We are dealing with an entity that feeds on fear and darkness. It is determined to break free and spread its rule." Dr. Blackwood proposed a risky plan, but the only chance to seal the entity back into the shadows. He would need to conduct a banishing ritual, involving magical elements and words of power. However, the ceremony had to be carried out at the exact moment when the entity was at its weakest, which would occur during the night of the full moon. With the help of Dr. Blackwood, Emma and Daniel began preparing for their final confrontation with the entity. They tirelessly studied the necessary rituals and incantations and gathered the magical materials and amulets indicated by the specialist. The night of the full moon approached, and the couple's anxiety grew. They knew that the success of the ritual was their only hope of saving Mr. Anderson and ridding the neighborhood of the darkness that had been unleashed. On the appointed night, with the sky illuminated by the full moon, they gathered at Mr. Anderson's house. Dr. Blackwood led the ritual, lighting candles, drawing protective symbols, and reciting words of power. As the ritual progressed, they felt an overwhelming pressure in the environment, as if the entity was aware of their efforts. Mr. Anderson was present, watching the ceremony with a mixture of hope and fear. As Dr. Blackwood's words filled the room, the couple noticed that Mr. Anderson's gaze seemed to clear, as if he were breaking free of the dark influence. The tension increased as the climax of the ritual approached. Dr. Blackwood spoke the final words, and a wave of energy pulsed through the room. The couple felt a terrifying presence trying to resist, but the forces of the ritual were powerful. Finally, with an agonizing scream, the demonic entity was sealed back into the shadows. The house shook, and a gust of icy wind swept through the place. The ritual had worked. Mr. Anderson fell to his knees, grateful to be free from the curse that had tormented him. He expressed his gratitude to Emma, Daniel, and Dr. Blackwood, knowing that his obsession with power had led him to a terrible dead end. The couple felt profound relief, but also a grim realization that evil always lurks in the shadows. They knew they would have to keep a vigilant eye to ensure the entity remained sealed, and that Mr. Anderson found the redemption he had sought so long. So, with the demonic entity banished and the mysterious neighbor freed from its dark grasp, Emma, Daniel, and Mr. Anderson looked to the future with hope, knowing that the darkness could be defeated, but never underestimated. They learned that sometimes even the quietest neighbors can hide terrifying secrets, and evil can hide in unexpected places. After the night of the successful ritual, life in the neighborhood gradually returned to normal. Mr. Anderson, now free from the curse that had plagued him for so long, began to reintegrate into the community. He became more sociable and willing to talk to his neighbors, who, in turn, were willing to leave the dark past behind. Emma and Daniel continued to maintain contact with Mr. Anderson, helping him transition to his new life free from demonic influence. They also maintained regular contact with Dr. Samuel Blackwood, whom they deeply thanked for his guidance and assistance during the banishing ritual. The couple realized that although the curse had been successfully sealed, they had gained knowledge about the hidden world that they could not ignore. Thus, they began to study more about magic, the occult, and protection against dark forces. With the help of Dr. Blackwood, they learned to identify and deal with supernatural threats that could arise in the future. The experience also strengthened the bond between Emma and Daniel. They had faced the unknown together and emerged more united than ever. The night of terror they had experienced served as a constant reminder of the importance of supporting each other and remaining vigilant against evil. As time passed, the dark history of the house next door and the mysterious neighbor became local legend. Some neighbors still murmured about what had happened, but most preferred to forget the disturbing past and move on. Mr. Anderson's home, once plunged into darkness, was now filled with light and hope. Peace had returned to the neighborhood, and the days of shadows and murmurs were behind them. But Emma, Daniel, and Mr. Anderson knew that the darkness never completely disappears. She hides between the lines of reality, waiting for the right moment to emerge. They were determined to remain vigilant, ready to face any supernatural threat that crossed their path. In the end, the experience left them with a profound understanding that the world is full of mysteries and dangers that cannot be ignored. They have learned that although they may live in a seemingly normal reality, horror lurks in the shadows, and that sometimes it is necessary to confront it to protect what is most precious. And so, the story of the haunted neighbor became part of local folklore, a constant reminder that the unknown and the unexplainable are part of our reality, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to face them. Emma, Daniel, and Mr. Anderson were determined to face the future together, prepared for any challenge the supernatural world could throw at them. They knew that true courage lay in facing horror, no matter how frightening it was,